Alex Marlow here, Editor-in-Chief for Breitbart News with Congressman Matt Gaetz. Congressman, great to see you in person and good to see you at the AmericaFest, Turning Point USA. You spoke, you addressed the crowd, thousands and thousands of young people. What was the gist of what you were saying to them?
I believe Republicans are going to retake the majority, and I want to make sure we're worthy of it, and that we have a plan and a strategy. And so I would convert every committee in the Congress to an oversight committee. And I wouldn't select chairmen for committees based on who'd been there the longest or who was able to launder lobbyists and pack money to the leadership. I'd pick the people who were capable at dogged, fair, determined oversight. And I think every committee has an investigation they should be running. And this is a stark contrast to like the Paul Ryan vision of a Republican majority with a Democrat president. In the Ryan years, they would pass all these bills, they would get Obama to veto them, and then they would claim that as some sort of moral victory. And then when we got power and we had Trump in the White House, they wouldn't put the same bills on Trump's desk. So I don't want to go through kind of the performative legislative practice. Joe Biden's not going to sign any bill of consequence that we pass, and the Senate wouldn't take it up anyway. So why not use the committee process to expose the truth to the American people and how these terrible choices the Biden administration's making is actually making their lives worse.
So let's be specific here. So what do you do with your time? If I totally appreciate no pro forma legislation, it's all going to get vetoed anyway, or almost all of it. That makes sense. So what do you do? Is it investigations?
Yes.
I mean, what is it?
Well, I mean, look, I would have the Education Committee looking into the Biden Center at UPenn. I would have the Armed Services Committee looking at the impact on our fighting force with these mandates and with the number of people that have just left because of all the white supremacy stand downs. I would use our healthcare committees to get to the bottom of the Wuhan Institute of Virology and their role in this virus. So like literally every committee, there has to be an approach like that. But here's what has to change structurally. Right now, the way you become a committee chairman, Republican or Democrat, is that the special interests who lobby your committee want you. And so they go and fund your ambitions, and then the chairmen become captive to those special interests. And they want bills. You know, they want to wrap the apparatus of government around their particular business model. And so I would ditch seniority as an organizing principle of selecting leadership, and I would construct a steering committee that would say to people who want to be chairman, come forward and identify the investigations you want to run. I'm on the Judiciary Committee. I think nothing is more dangerous right now than the weaponization of the Justice Department against people who show up at school board meetings. Because that paves the way for such a broad political targeting, the likes of which we've never seen before. So that's one I'd like to run.
One of the things that the Breitbart audience is most cynical about is that even when Republicans have power, it seems like no one's held accountable. The deep state still gets bigger, just maybe at a slower rate. Big tech gets more monopolistic, just maybe at a slightly slower rate. What is the plan to hold the Adam Schiffs, the Dr. Fauci's, the people who have been so irresponsible with their power accountable?
Well, in a way, the Democrats right now are opening Pandora's box with subpoenaing the phone records of lawmakers, stripping people of committees like they've done to Gosar and Green. And so I think we'll have to use some of their tools against them. That means having a fighting force in our leadership, not a group that just wants to hold hands with in the warm spring rain with the Democrats.
I'm supposed to talk to Marjorie Taylor Greene later this weekend, and I know she spoke to Kevin McCarthy, and I presume they discussed whether or not there's going to be committees that people are going to be stripped from if the Republicans get power, but maybe not. I'm very skeptical
Alex,
of this.
We can't even strip Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger of their committee. I mean, today Liz Cheney is serving on the Armed Services Committee. She is on Leader McCarthy's China task force, and she is literally weaponizing the institution against our members. So I mean, like, we can't even clean up our own house right now when we have the power, and so your readers and viewers are justified in their skepticism of our current leadership.
So what is the way that you convince the Republican establishment? Some of them are coming around ideologically, but tactically, that it is time to be more aggressive.
That has to be ignited from the activist base. It's literally why I am here in the deserts of Arizona and not looking at the beautiful emerald waters of North Florida.
Right.
You know, I am here because at the end of the day, the inspiration is drawn from the people who knock on the doors, who make the phone calls, who give those $25 and $50 donations. And they have to make demands of the Republican leadership to a greater extent than we do now. Look, there is an establishment in Washington that wants to reconstitute. They were very disrupted by the Trump presidency, and we should not let them. We should ensure that this new rising populism that really, Breitbart has been a big part of the architecture of, that doesn't fade away and become a vestige of history.
So I want to talk a little bit about how you personally have been attacked for whatever the reasons are. You've certainly taken more incoming than pretty much anyone other than maybe President Trump. Mark Meadows is catching up really quick.
Yeah, Jordan too. I mean, you see this last week, they're trying to throw Jordan in jail for like totally innocuous text messages.
So was there ever a moment that you thought maybe this is too much, or does it fuel you?
I come from a fighting district. The district I represent has the highest concentration of active duty military and veterans in America. And that is where I draw my inspiration. And there wasn't a moment I didn't think that it would be appropriate to step away from that fight, because I see how hard my constituents battle to preserve the greatness of our country. So look, when you're one of the firebrands, you spend your time in the barrel. I mean, remember when they tried to throw Devin Nunes in jail because he went to Trump and said these people are illegally spying on your campaign? And it was all true.
It was all true. And by the way, one of the nicest guys also in the Congress. Is just like
I'm devastated he's leaving. I'll be honest with you. I'm very heartbroken by that, because Devin was the kind of guy, if he was the leader of the Ways and Means Committee, we would have had a cudgel against a politicized IRS. And so now we'll have to find some good replacements.
Did you see a clear replacement in that? Because that's such a big spot.
It's a big spot. We got a lot of great members there. For me, it's less about the individual, more about, what are you going to do? Is the job of the Ways and Means Chairman to find some new carve out in the tax code that we can pass, in the middle of the night? Or is the job to ensure that our countrymen are treated fairly?
I think one of the things that people like about you least on the left is that you're actually having a good time. And you're actually you're a firebrand, that's your branding, but you're actually kind of nice, and you reach across the aisle, Katie Hill, AOC. I mean, you're actually trying to talk to these people. Does anyone ever return the favor and reach back out?
It's interesting you ask that question. Things have really changed since January 6th.
Yeah.
Democrats used to sort of be our fellow human beings on the floor.
Yeah.
And while we could have bitter disagreements on one thing, we could, at times see other things the same way. I mean, I am not a neoconservative. I'm not trying to find new caves in Central Asia to invade. I'm not trying to find new ways to harm the civil rights of our fellow Americans. And sometimes I'm actually on the same side as people like Ilhan Omar or Zoe Lofgren or people like that on those questions. And I think that populist connectivity is good for the country, but unfortunately after January 6th, they are so taken by their own sense of grievance that dominates over policymaking.
So let me be specific about AOC. Have you had any interaction with her directly? Because I know you've tried.
Alex and I used to talk on a daily basis when we had voting days before January 6th, and she hadn't spoken to me since.
Do you think that she's changed, or is it just the atmosphere?
Yeah, no, I think that day changed a lot of my Democrat colleagues, and I think also the way they reacted to it. They became so bought in to the overreaction that they now can't reconcile that with any semblance of collegiality, which is a shame. I regret that.
It is a shame, and I've noticed this too. It's not like I wasn't thrilled about what was happening on January the 6th. I don't think the vast majority of conservatives were, but the extreme overreaction, I think, took any sort of lesson you could have learned and has had the reverse effect. And that does leave us more divided. But luckily, we have the unifier in chief in the White House, Joe Biden. Evaluate his performance thus far.
He's obviously a man in decline, and he is overseeing a nation in decline. And managed American decline is really a greater threat than some just precipitous drop off the cliff. It would probably be further along in cycling him out and cycling Harris in if she wasn't such an embarrassment.
I know she's been worse than he's been.
It is hard for Democrats, I think, to sort of cringe their way through the Kamala Harris experience, and so they're sort of stuck with either the weekend at Bernie's option, or an option where really things could become even more catastrophic.
So your district's in free Florida, close to Alabama. I mean, this is middle America.
Yes.
So what are you hearing from specifically from your constituents? Is it gas prices? Is it China? Is it tech? What is it? What are the things that are on their mind?
Kitchen table economics are either not an issue or they are the only issue. You know, I live in a part of America where we don't have a lot of this crime that's hurting America's Democrat-run cities. Everyone's real patriotic. No one would have thought to burn down a business during the summer of 2020 in North Florida. That would have been taken care of very quickly.
Yeah.
But people do feel like the lives that they've built, the money that they've saved, the assets that they have are just running through their fingers like sand on the beach. And that creates a great anxiety. And folks want people who will battle for them. You know, I think in the politics of yesteryear, folks would say, okay, well, I might agree with this person on taxes and this person on the environment, this person on guns, and you try to pick the person that you agree with the most to be a representative. But increasingly in my district, there is the sense that it's us against them. And most of them want to destroy most of us, and it's choose your fighter time. We need more fighters in Congress. I need backup, and that's why I'm calling on these legions of activists to help us out.
So talk to me about the Olympics. We're about to go to Beijing, literally Beijing, and do an Olympics. Do you think we should?
You know, I haven't been much on the Olympics in many years. I am sympathetic to athletes who prepared their whole life for a moment, and I actually like to see America win. But, you know, I think it was President Trump who said everything woke turns to shit. And increasingly that's the case with the Olympics.
Quotes with many good ones.
Yeah, it's sort of the case with the Olympics. So, you know, I think this diplomatic boycott that we're doing now is sort of, you know, it's so like how we deal with China. You know, it's not quite enough. And, you know, frankly, I'm not too taken by the experience.
Well, what's your message to people who want to be a part of the conservative movement in a bigger way, maybe Republican politics, that they know they could be the next Matt Gaetz, not in being someone who a lot of people admire, but someone who is going to get attacked a lot, relentlessly. Every single thing you do, they're going to go through your trash. That is, the left is sending a very clear, you're an example. They're making you an example. Yeah. And that is designed to discourage people.
Well, you're totally right, but there is a role for patriotic fighters at every level of this movement, Alex. Whether it's someone stuffing envelopes, whether it's someone running for Congress, you know, we need people who are better skilled at the mechanics of campaigning. I mean, we had the better candidate in the last election. They had the better strategy. They had the better lawyers. So I think we need people to think about how their skill sets contribute to the fight, and then people do need to improve their skill stack. You know, if you're someone who's just been knocking on doors, maybe you learn how to be a poll watcher, how to make sure that you get evidence of any election irregularities to a judicial process quickly, so you're not trying to reorient yourself to potential fraud after the fact. So I think that is important. And you know what? They do come for the fighters. But that's always been the case in America. And it's just still a country worth all the fight we have. I mean, there's nowhere to go. There's no distant land somewhere to convert to our purpose if we fail. And so while we take some slings and arrows, it'll be worth it when we save this great country.
Matt Gaetz, Congressman from Florida, thanks so much for the time.
Thanks, Alex. Good seeing you, man.